Greetings and God bless. So, you might have been hearing me talk about the dangers of being a pedestrian. And I was just doing some research. And in 2019, there was an article on cityobservatory.org. Why are US drivers killing so many pedestrians? I mean, isn't that just such a wild way of putting it? And I've put it in the chat, so I'm hoping you're able to take a look at that. And so, in this article by Joe Courtwright, it seems that according to the Governor's Highway Safety Association via Streets blog, from the 9 years from 2009 to 2018, pedestrian deaths increased 51%. Now, notice they stopped, they don't have further stats because I am sure that in 2020, there was more deaths. I bet pedestrian deaths probably increased to probably 75%, but no one would ever put that statistic, make that available publicly because they want people to die. It seems I'm not exactly sure why. I'm thinking there must be some sort of death incentive. There must be some sort of financial incentive for killing people. I don't know if the state takes life insurance policies out of everybody who lives in the state, out of everybody who's filled out a census or tax forms, because it just seems like death is profitable. We've seen this from the hospitals and nursing homes that there's that CV money where they get $300,000 for each of that kind of death. So maybe they would call anybody who is any pedestrian who's killed. Maybe they would call that the CV infection, and they would get $300,000. I don't know, but as of 2018, pedestrian fatalities increased 51%. Now, I'm sure there's a lot of people who drive who are like, well, that's just the cost of progress. We need to murder people for progress. That's what people have tried telling me. That's the price of medical progress, is that people die. The very person who told me that is now dead after they did the medical progress in genetic modification injection that gives clots. So there's people who are just going to rationalize killing people is necessary. Killing people is actually good. That's what a lot of progressive liberals think. Killing certain people is good because then the cancer of humans on the planet is mitigated. Because it seems like there's this anti-human agenda that a lot of people have. They think that humans should die. Humans should be murdered. Humans should be terminated at whatever point possible. And it is a very strange thing to me because I thought life was priceless. I thought life was not something anybody gets to take away from anybody else. But the evidence is proving otherwise. So to compare, apparently in Europe, as of between 2009 to 2018, their deaths from murdering people with the car went down 36%. Now, so apparently, and in Europe, they have mobile phones, they have distracted driving, they have people who drink, they have people on medications, they have people who are sleep deprived. So there's plenty of the things that Americans have that is happening in Europe, but somehow, for some reason, Europeans aren't killing pedestrians like Americans are. And apparently, and it's clear, like nobody does anything when somebody kills a pedestrian. And there's so many obstacles, like police officers are just like, we're too busy dealing with actual murders by a gun. The thing is, if somebody murders you with a car, that could be considered murder with a deadly weapon. I don't understand why a police chief would rationalize that a gang murder is more important than a traffic murder, a murder by a car. But this is where we're at. This is the mentality we have. Nobody cares. People just want to eat their food and go to their bars and play their video games and go to work and kill people at work, kill people on the way home, and go home and enjoy themselves and go to sleep and then awake to do that another day. And I know, of course, I'm painting things in broad strokes, but look, folks, we have uh, over 50% more murders with a car. And this is normal. Like, murder is being normalized. Murder has been normalized at hospitals and nursing homes. And this was before the CV. Murder is normalized in abortion clinics. Uh, and I really don't know where else, but it's probably normalized in other things. And you know what? Murder isn't even the worst thing that could happen. I would say child abuse, child trafficking, trafficking of adults. That is actually worse, I would say, than just killing somebody. But because at least when somebody's been killed, they're not being tortured. So, that's not even the worst of what is happening in the United States. So, anyways, what do you think about drivers that kill people with their cars? What do you think about cities that allow drivers to kill people with their cars? What do you think about the people who have been murdered with the cars or their families who've had their family members murdered with the cars? What do we do about it? Do we just accept it as just this is how the U.S. is making progress, and even though Europe is somehow able to manage not murdering their people, who knows? Maybe the statistics are messed up. Maybe Europe murders as many people as the U.S. does. I doubt that the U.S. statistics are fake. I'm because as a person, I would say the past probably since I would say even in like maybe 2010 or so, maybe even 2005 or 6, when I lived in the suburbs of Oregon, I noticed the cars were just kind of like crazy. Like you had to look behind you to make sure somebody wasn't going to try to run you over when you're just crossing a little street. Like, what's up with that? Like, drivers can't observe that pedestrians in front of them, and just that the pedestrian is about to walk onto a curb. Like, there's some weird um, blindness or entitlement, I think, that drivers get into. And I ride a bike, and sometimes I am rushing, but it's I don't really, because I'm on a bike, I'm not really taking crazy risks, and no car is ever in danger from my bike. I mean, even not even my bike accidentally bumping into them. But it seems like drivers in the United States are like, everybody else needs to accommodate me. It's the strangest thing. And apparently, I guess everybody is accommodating the entitled driver. And is this what we want to continue? And what do we do? What recourse do we have? Apparently, there's no legal recourse because police are too busy dealing with donuts. Some weird like CIA operative, they're targeting somebody who wrote on Twitter, because they're not. I mean, and probably once in a while they're actually dealing with a legit crime. I don't know, because I don't really I don't know personally, and but it does seem like unglamorous things. I mean, I think the police want to be involved when there's like a double murder or suicide or something like that, and that's really glamorous. From what I've observed, the police just like clean up the glass, try to make it as much to curb appeal, so the tourists are just coming in and spending money. Like, that's all that it seems to me police departments care about. Just keep the tourists naive about things, and unless it's like not like bloody or something like that, and then the tourists are on their own. So, yeah. So, what do we do when it's kind of anarchy and people are being murdered by vehicles? Like, what's a lawful response? And I don't know if people need to just be crossing guards, just physically, because that's when I was growing up in New York City, there was a crossing guard at school. And I guess the one time there wasn't that, one day, like somebody in my family got hit um, by a drunk driver, and it was like 8 in the morning, and I think it was a doctor at 8 in the morning, drunk. So, and they hit a child, and the child was walking alone, and I guess there was no crossing guard at the time. So maybe neighborhoods need to have a crossing guard, and maybe having somebody look up driver's license of reckless drivers, and maybe keeping documentation of reckless drivers, and maybe you know uh, the next time that reckless driver kills somebody or injures somebody, if there's that documentation, then that can be perhaps, uh, made public knowledge. And so the murderer it doesn't get to murder people anymore. Like maybe they won't be allowed to murder people with their car. Maybe the car murderer will have to ride a bike or walk or take the bus. And I know, like, I can just sense the drivers are like, "Oh my god, that's so horrible." Like drivers are like, other people should get to murder other pedestrians and other drivers because cars are so important that no decency needs to be honored. Like at all costs, people should just get to drive and murder people. I mean, that's really the reality that we are in as of April 2022. Nobody cares. Nobody cares, and this is the reality we get when nobody cares that people are being murdered by cars, whether it's a reckless driver crashing into another car or a reckless driver killing a pedestrian. That's just a fact. I'm not being mean. I'm not being negative. If anarchy is what you want, then this is what we get. But don't be naive, and don't poo-poo or um, you know gaslight me and others when people are literally losing their lives or they're being maimed because of reckless driving and nobody's doing anything about it. So, yeah, those are my thoughts, and thank you for any suggestions about what you think. What do we do in light of reckless drivers? And there's no accountability. I do think it's important to take down license plate numbers, and if you have a camera, record that information. And I'm not sure if there's some sort of database. I think I know there's a database where you can look up the criminal records, I think, of somebody's license plate. That's from the Freedom of Information Act. So, and I'm sure there's a lot of angry murder drivers that are enraged that I should even, expect safety, and that I'm even questioning their right to murder people and maim people. But those are people that really are criminals and should need help, and should not be on the road, and should definitely not have a car, and possibly should be in jail and in prison for murder. Because when you murder, you should go to jail. You should go to prison when you murder. And I know murder is the lifestyle. I know people are murdering for profit. They're murdering to keep their job, and there's nobody that's quite saying that outright. And the thing is, people have been murdering people before the CV stimulus because there's other reasons people murder people, and it's not like they're even angry at the person. It's just part of the job, uh, in nursing homes or hospitals. Or I'm wondering if there's other, like federally funded aid organizations that murder people through negligence or a deliberate delivery of some sort of poison or something like that. So, uh, yeah, I know this is it's kind of an extraordinary claim that I'm making, but if you just look it up, uh, like if you just look at certain statistics, like that's what's going on. Life is cheap. That's what I'm learning. Life is cheap, and I have been naive, thinking that I was safe and that other people are safe. And there's so many other people who are naive, just like wandering around with their children in a dangerous location. And it's not obviously a dangerous location, but there's, like I was, um, I was walking on uh, a major tourist street, and there's an alleyway, and somebody was just driving really fast uh, on the crosswalk. So there's a sidewalk and there's an alley, and this is the busiest street in Rapid, but somebody was just driving like a bat out of hell, and this mother with her kid was just gonna run right like a second before the car was like 30 mile an hour out of the alley. So the car was just I don't care if I hit people, even though this is a very heavily pedestrian the pedestrian heavy location. The mother wasn't concerned about nearly getting hit, not to mention her kid. So this is just where we're at, and I think it's just good to face facts. Because when we can face the facts, we can navigate it. So if everybody who's driving is allowed to be a murderer, okay. So everybody's like this. All the drivers are like this. These aristocrats, because in the feudal times, the aristocrats could kill people. Run them over, and it just didn't matter. And we've devolved to that. Uh, and so, and these aristocrats, they're white, they're black, they're Asian, they're women, they're men, they're liberals, they're Republicans. Like, it's just, I've seen it across the board, across the nation. So now that we know drivers are murderers, not all of them, but apparently a majority of them. So how do we navigate this? How do we navigate when drivers don't care if they murder or maim you? We still need to live. We still need to walk to the store or the library or to meet a friend somewhere. I think it's important to be cautious, but I think, maybe having a camera and documenting reckless drivers and maybe looking up a reckless driver. And I don't know if there's some way to, um, you know, um, file a complaint with the local police department. So maybe it could be put on their record. So if you have any suggestions of how we hold vehicular manslaughter drivers, how do we hold them accountable? How do we hold those who maim people with their cars? How do we hold them accountable? Because I don't know. So thank you for watching and any of your suggestions. God bless.